Hello. Hello, and welcome everyone to today's Facebook Live on the historic Better Care, Better Jobs Act. My name is Ai-jen Poo, and I'm the director of the National Domestic Workers Alliance and Caring Across Generations. And I'm honored to be your host for today's exciting conversation. I would first like to thank Senator Bob Casey and Congresswoman Debbie Dingle for your determined and tireless leadership on home and community-based services. I'm extremely grateful to you both and to our extraordinary panelists today, Adi Barkan, who I will introduce in just a few minutes. I want to take a moment to recognize just how far we have come on home and community-based services because of all of you and our collective efforts. Every day, as we get closer to making history in our country, to delivering profound change for care workers, older adults, people with disabilities, and family caregivers, we are going to make history. And change cannot come soon enough. Families that need long-term care have been waiting for years because states simply do not have the staff and resources. The overwhelming demand for home care will only grow, with 10,000 people aging into retirement per day and living longer than ever before. Older people and people with disabilities should be able to live full lives connected to their families and communities, but too many of us haven't been able to access the services we need, and a simmering crisis is headed towards catastrophe. At the same time, care workers, who are mostly women of color, have had to support themselves and their families on poverty wages without benefits. In fact, the average pay for a direct care worker has only gone up by about $1 over the last decade. These are workers that have put their whole heart and their own safety on the line, pouring themselves into this work that is as emotionally and physically challenging as it is rewarding, all so that the rest of us can go into the office knowing that our loved ones are being taken care of. The lack of fair compensation and value placed on these jobs as a legacy of slavery and racial exclusion dating all the way back to the New Deal has led to high rates of turnover and home care deserts across the country. And thankfully now, finally, we have a solution. The Better Care, Better Jobs Act is the key to both creating good paying and dignified jobs for care workers and expanding access to urgently needed long-term care in the home and community. If Congress provides the funding, it will lead to direct job creation and supporting the millions of working family caregivers who've been struggling to manage work and care in order to return to their jobs. The Better Care, Better Jobs Act is all about putting people, the people who are the beating heart of our economy, at the center of our economic future. A strong human infrastructure supported by home and community-based services is exactly what we need right now. And I look forward to discussing with our panelists how we can fully realize this vision now. And with that, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Adi Barkan. Adi is my longtime friend and founder and co-executive director of Be a Hero PAC. He's one of the most important organizers and activists in our country. Adi brings policymakers face to face with the people whose lives their decisions shape, and in so doing, changes the way we all see and act on the policies that impact our lives. Since 2017, Adi's work has focused on healthcare and home and community-based services, the essential services that people with disabilities need to thrive. If you haven't seen the documentary about Adi's work, Not Going Quietly, you got to put it in the queue tonight and you won't regret it. Welcome, Adi, and thank you so much for all you do. Over to you, Adi.
Thank you to the Senate Aging Committee, Senator Casey, Representative Dingle, and I-Gen for being leaders in the effort to secure full funding for home and community-based services. I'm grateful to do this work alongside you all. And thank you to Social Security Works for putting together today's event and for inviting me to be a part of this critical discussion. I'm Adi Barkan and I am the co-founder of Be a Hero, a political advocacy organization fighting for health justice. 5 years ago I was diagnosed with ALS, a neurological illness that, over the course of just a few short years, has left me nearly completely paralyzed. Early on, I made the decision to undergo a tracheostomy, a procedure to implant a breathing tube in my windpipe so that I could continue to breathe after my diaphragm would eventually fail me. I made this decision knowing that I would lose the ability to eat, speak, and breathe on my own. But I did so to stretch the time I have with my wife and 2 young children, and to continue the work of securing health justice in America. I know all too well the lives at stake if we do not secure full funding, because I rely on 24-hour home care to survive. My team of 7 caregivers makes it possible for me to be here with you all today, so I would like to spend some time talking about how their work allows me to live an independent and full life. Each member of my team is highly skilled. They do everything from making sure there are no blockages in my breathing tube so that I don't choke, to fixing the tablet I use to communicate. Learning this job requires months of training, and at a nursing home, the alternative to home care, I would not be able to receive the level of care that I need to survive. In addition to keeping me safe, my caregivers serve as an extension of myself, helping me participate in my family's life in ways that I would if I were not paralyzed, like offering a guest a glass of water or loading the dishwasher. Their work saved my marriage, allowing my wife, Rachel, and I to be partners and co-parents again, instead of patient and caregiver. They allow me to be fully present with my 2 young children, so that we can create formative memories together. I've been able to retain my team for years now because I pay them above market rates. This isn't the case for most care workers across the nation who are severely underpaid and receive little to no benefits. Care workers, the majority of whom are women of color, earn an average salary of $17,200 per year. 1 in 5 live in poverty. Securing full funding for home and community-based services, then, is a matter of economic and racial justice, as well as gender equity. It must be stated that clearing the nearly 1 million person waiting list for home and community-based services and bolstering wages for our care workers must go hand in hand. The truth of that matter is that all of us will need care one day. Some, sooner than others. I was only 32 years old when I was diagnosed with ALS. I've learned firsthand that you can't always prepare for the moments that alter the course of your life. Accidents happen and hardships befall us all. When they do, you want the best option for care available. Home care is that option, but because it is prohibitively expensive, this path is out of reach for most. When home care is not accessible, patients are forced into nursing homes, dangerous institutions where people are merely warehoused and isolated from their loved ones. Since the pandemic began, 138,000 disabled Americans in nursing homes have died from the coronavirus. The loss of these 138,000 lives is a moral failure, and a direct result of the for-profit system of care that corporate lobbyists, like those hired by the nursing home industry, worked hard to maintain. We deserve better, and together, we can seize this historic opportunity to extend the fundamental right of care to all. At its core, this fight for home and community-based services is about our freedom. We all deserve to lead independent and safe lives, with dignity, and in community with our loved ones. And we progress as a society when we're all given the opportunity to contribute meaningfully to our communities, as I have been able to do because of home care. Contact your members of Congress and let them know how home and community-based services would make a difference in your life, today, and in the future you imagine.
Thank you so much, Adi, and I couldn't agree more. This is about our freedom. And now I'm so excited to introduce our champions. First, we're going to hear from Senator Bob Casey, born and raised in Scranton, Pennsylvania, where he still lives today. Senator Casey spent his career advocating for policies that will raise wages and improve the quality of life and work for middle-class families across generations. Senator Casey serves on 4 committees, including the Finance Committee, the Help Committee, and the Select Committee on Intelligence. He's also the chairman of the Special Committee on Aging, where he has led the way in the Senate on preparing our nation for a growing older population, including support for caregivers, the workforce with disabilities. Welcome, Senator Casey, and thank you so much for your leadership.
Well, Ajin, thanks so much for getting us together today, and thanks for serving as our MC, and most especially, thank you for your leadership in helping us pass into law the Better Care, Better Jobs Act. All of the work that you've done, the advocacy, the passion, the experience you've brought to these issues and the bill itself is indispensable. And it's one of several reasons that we can point to that we're ready to get this bill passed and have the policy move forward. But I want to thank you for your leadership. I also want to thank Social Security Works for making this event possible, and for all of the advocacy that I know still goes on and will continue until we are completed in our work. We still have more work to do. Adi, I can't begin to thank you enough for all that you've brought to this fight, your own story, your own witness, your own personal testimony. Every time you have gathered with us and brought us together to talk about what this means to a family, you bring not just your story, but you bring a credibility and a gravity to these issues. And the fact that you have had more time with your family is one of the many compelling reasons that we should pass this legislation. We want to make sure that every family has those same opportunities. So I want to thank you for all the work that you've done to make this possible. And what can I say about United States Representative Debbie Dingle? You know, we got to know each other so well. I've been addressing her as Debbie, and that's okay, I guess. But she's a United States representative who has so many batteries. She is always moving, always working. I'm pretty busy, but in the Senate, we move a little slower, as you know, than the House. Debbie has to move a lot faster to be successful in the House as she is. And I'm so grateful for her leadership in the most difficult of legislative circumstances. She's been passionate. She hasn't just brought her public policy expertise, but she too has brought her own personal story and her own personal witness to this issue. And we would not be anywhere near the goal line without her leadership and her determined, passionate, and very effective advocacy. So I couldn't have had a better partner. And while I'm talking about people that have made this possible, I want to tell you a little story. Ijin mentioned that I'm a native and resident of Scranton, Pennsylvania. Well, there's another person who spends a lot of time in Washington who's also a native, not a resident, but a native, and that's President Biden. He lived there for the first 10 years of his life and has been so kind over all these years to talk about his formative years in Scranton and what it meant to his life and the life of his family. And we're heartened by that every time he visits. But this visit he had last week, a week ago today actually, had special meaning because it was his first visit to his hometown as president. And he didn't come up just to have some kind of a parade and a celebration. He came up to do work, the work of talking about the many ways we can lift up families with this Build Back Better budget proposal that we're all still working on. But he talked in very personal ways as well about what it means to him, how important it is that we enact into law the policy that undergirds the Better Care, Better Jobs Act. And President Biden had some folks that he wanted to hear from, and he heard directly from folks in the disability community, both those who are receiving services and also those workers that Adi talked about who are providing services. So there we were towards the end of a long engagement with people from all walks of life in Scranton, and he was meeting and talking about these issues. And just before we left, I wanted to have him hear one more message. It was literally the last words he heard before the event concluded and he went off to the airport. And it was from a young man by the name of Brandon Kingsmore. Now, Brandon's from the Lehigh Valley, which is kind of between Scranton and Philadelphia on the eastern end of our state, right over the border from New Jersey. And Brandon came to the event at my invitation with Lynn Widener, who's his caregiver. Now, we've gotten to know them. They've been on a lot of Zoom calls and have told their story about the care that Lynn provides to Brandon. But just before we left, I leaned over and I said, Brandon, please tell the president what you've told me and others about what Lynn means to your care, what she means to your life. And wow, in less than, in about 40 seconds or so, a lot less than a minute, Brandon said, among other things, he said, I would not be able to have the life I have without her work. That's a direct quotation from Brandon. And then he talked about the universe of caregivers across the country. He talked about thousands of people needing this care. And the number is actually bigger than that. We know we need even more than thousands who need this care. But he said those individuals, the caregivers who provide that care, Brandon said, quote, they give us a substantial life, unquote. And it was nice that he ended the comments he had to President Biden by making a reference to President Biden's own family and all that they've been through. But I think Brandon got it right. We have to make sure that that person who has a disability, we have to make sure that person who might be a senior, who wants home and community-based services, as Audie said, care and services near their family and near their community. We got to make sure that those Americans have the benefit of the best care in the world. And that means making sure that their caregivers are in fact themselves cared for, so that that individual can have, as Brandon said, a substantial life. Now, you all know the numbers on how important this is, that if we get this passed, millions of people will have these services. You know that we'll have hundreds of thousands, by one estimate, more than 500,000 new jobs, in addition to over 1 million people getting back to work. And I know I hear a lot in Washington from some politicians who talk about people have to get back to work. And so we have to just, move on with any kind of support and tell people to get back to work. Well, that's easy for a politician to lecture to people to get back to work. But my question for that politician is, what are you doing to help them get back to work? And we're all happy that we have an infrastructure bill that got through the Senate on roads and bridges. That's all important. But for a lot of Americans, for people with disabilities, for seniors, for families, their bridge to work might be, in addition to that physical bridge that needs to be repaired or to be replaced, their bridge to work might be quality services when it comes to home and community-based services. Their bridge to work, and often, as you all know, it's her bridge to work, will be quality, affordable childcare. Her bridge to work might be that pre-K slot that her son or her daughter has, or that her bridge to work might be the caregiving that her son or daughter with the disability needs, so she can get to work with the peace of mind of knowing that the most precious person in their life has the best care possible. That's what we're talking about here. That substantial life that Brandon talked about. So we're going to make sure that people have a bridge to work. We know that people with disabilities also need a bridge to work. Sometimes leaving the home every day to get to work, but they can't do that without their caregiver. We also know that home and community-based services for people with disabilities are a bridge to not just work, but a bridge to independence, to an independent life, a full life, a substantial life, as Brandon said, a life with dignity that's affirmed and valued by way of our policy in the manner that we believe it should be. So this is really about lifting up families, whether it's Brandon's families or family or any one of our families. And we've got to make sure that while Brandon is being lifted up, the best way to lift him up is to make sure that Lynn, his caregiver, is paid a lot more than she's paid now. She's paid only $12 an hour, just about the average for the nation. So we got some more work to do, but we're getting close, and we're going to keep going till we get the job done to make sure that America meets its promise of providing the best caregiving in the world. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Senator Casey, for grounding us in what's at stake, and also for bringing Lynn and Brandon into the room with us today. It is now my great honor to introduce our champion in the United States House of Representatives. Congresswoman Debbie Dingle represents Michigan's 12th district in the U.S. House of Representatives, where she has made it a priority to be a voice for the Midwest on issues that matter most to working families. She is a member of the House Committee on Energy and Commerce and the Natural Resources Committee, and Congresswoman Dingle knows firsthand what it means to be a caregiver. And every day she has brought that experience and that passion to the campaign to achieve these historic investments in home and community services. Thank you so much, Congresswoman, for your dedication and your determination to bringing home real change for caregiving families. Welcome.
Jen, thank you. Thanks. I want to join Senator Casey in thanking you for all that you have done to get us to where we are today, and tell you how much it has meant to me to be able to work with you, and thank you for your work. And to be here with Senator Casey, who you just heard from, I could have no better partner. I don't believe we would be where we are right now if we didn't have someone that was as solid, as down to earth, as caring, and just keeps working. The Senate can be a complicated place. I won't tell you how I feel about them someday, because Senator Casey's here and I have nothing but positive feelings towards him. And he never lets anything that happens come up or deter him. And we are where we are. We have a lot of problems. Sometimes we can get things through the House and not through the Senate. And Senator Casey's determination has gotten us to where we are today. And I want to tell you, there is no better partner, and we are where we are today because of the work that he's done. And I was sitting here listening to Audie, who actually first became a friend of my husband's when you were doing the Affordable Care Act, and thinking about how lucky we are that he's still here, the voice, the difference he makes every day. People they can ignore Senator Casey and I, but you can't ignore Audie. He's real. He's living this every single day. And he's brought his story and made a difference in so many people's lives. I'm grateful that he's become my friend and for what he does every single day. Thank you, Audie. And Social Security Works who's brought us here together. They've been wonderful friends since I walked in the front door of the Congress, and the work that they do matters every single day. So I'm grateful to them that they've brought us together today at what is the pivotal moment. We really are at the pivotal moment right now. As we discuss the Build Back Better plan and the bipartisan infrastructure bill, this is when we got to keep our voices raised. We got to talk about why it matters. And we also need to talk about what matters. Too many people, again, don't understand the issues that we are fighting for. Quite frankly, home care matters. You know, the Merriam-Webster dictionary defines infrastructure as the underlying foundation or basic framework of a system, an organization, a country. And as part of our nation's infrastructure, we do need to expand access to home care services for senior and people with disabilities, and improve, as people have discussed this afternoon, the pay and benefits of the long-term care workforce. Here's a reality. Home care is the foundation of our economy. Caregiving is the foundation of our economy. Child care matters greatly too. But no one can do their job if their loved ones aren't cared for. And that's a reality, and that's what we've got to talk about. Building roads and bridges matters, and it's important, but so is home care. And I'm tired of people trying to make it an either or situation. We need both of these bills. caregiving allows all other work to be possible. So that's why I'm with you today. Say that this work is essential and that we have to address it. As several of the previous speakers referred to, it is very deeply personal to me. I was a caregiver for the man that I loved, who, and until you are in the system trying to make sure somebody that you love is treated with dignity and respect, you do not realize how broken and fractured the long-term healthcare system is. And I'm luckier than 99 and 9/10 of the people in this country. I know it. And there were days that I would just take my head and bang it against the wall and be in total tears. So I was lucky ultimately that I found a caregiver who became a member of our family, as Audie talked about, and is still a member of our family, and that I could afford it. Because most people, I mean, I paid her a decent wage because she was part of our family and she deserved that. And a lot of people can't afford it. More people should be able to do that without sitting on waiting lists or balancing being a family caregiver and keeping food on the table. So to me, it's very simple. Seniors and people with disabilities deserve to live with dignity, respect, and live safely. And healthcare workers deserve adequate pay and benefits and for the work that they do. Christine became full-time for us, but I had other caregivers that, as the end approached, and I had to get people for many hours, they were working 2 or 3 jobs and were still living below the poverty line. It just, you don't understand how bad it is until you really, really are in the middle of the system. Our nation's long care system doesn't meet the unique needs that so many have. And it's hurting our economy. We know, here's a fact, it's higher than this, but we can document that 820,000 Americans are currently on the home and community healthcare wait lists. We know that over half of Americans who are 65 or older will require long-term care at some point. And we know that 9 out of 10 want to remain in their own home, in the community setting, with people they know and love, that's been their home forever. It's their place. It's where they belong. And we know that workers have had to choose between so many essentials, between childcare and work, between keeping the family healthy while also paying the bills. And so many of our care workers in childcare and home care continued in the workforce during this pandemic with healthcare risks and no PPE. And the annual income for them is still below the poverty line, even working this past year. And we don't know what so many would have done without it. Yet research shows the economy could retain 10.7 million jobs by providing support to family caregivers. We've got to change it. So that's when Senator Casey and we introduced the Better Care, Better Jobs Act in June to expand home and community-based services so that seniors and people with disabilities can get the care they need in the setting of their choice. Along with that, we can also ensure that care workers are receiving the pay and the benefits that are representative of the work that they're doing. Is there any job that matters to you more than taking care of the people that you love? I know that was the most important thing in my life. So when we passed it out of the House, we secured nearly $200 billion in our budget reconciliation bill to enhance home and community-based services and worker benefits. It was a huge win. We're continuing to fight to get more. I won't let anybody talk about a number because that becomes the floor and we want to get the maximum. Senator Casey was with the president most recently, but last week we were told it was still in it. So I think it sounds like he heard it was still in it yesterday. We can't take anything for granted until this gets done. And that's why we're here. We have to make sure that this is in the Build Back Better. I think it'll be there, but we can't take it for granted until we see the bill and we actually vote on it. But our message to everybody is we need to invest in care work now, and we cannot do it alone. We are working tirelessly with our colleagues, advocates, and caregivers like you all and the care recipients and many more to address this issue. But we need you right now. So thank you for the work that you've done every single day. It makes a world of difference, and we wouldn't be where we are right now in this fight without you. So we're not done. We're getting close to the finish line. We need all of you. Thank you for what you've done, and know the difference you're going to make in so many people's lives. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. And you know that we are with you. And when I think about the power of the 53 million working family caregivers in this country, and all of the older adults in this country, and all of the people with disabilities, and the 5 million home care workers, that is a powerful force for change. And we have all started to step up and come together around home and community-based services, around the Better Care, Better Jobs Act. And I believe that we are unstoppable. And so many have tuned into today's program, and we're starting to get some questions from the audience. I want to direct the first question to you, Senator Casey. One of our audience members is saying, later in life, I had to leave my job to take care of my parents. So I know what it would mean for somebody to have access to home care for someone they love personally. What can I do to help make sure that Congress passes this funding?
Well, it's a great question, because sometimes people believe they're distant from what's happening in Washington. But the good news is people can directly communicate now by way of telling their story. That's probably the best, most effective way, just as we heard from Representative Dingle and as well as Audie, to talk about personal stories, whether it's theirs or Brandon's or so many others. So making sure that your member of Congress knows your story and your community knows your story is the best way to move this forward. I think even though we're still working to the last minute to work on the policy and the funding, these stories are really are the impetus behind the momentum we've had.
Thank you so much, Senator. And the next question is related, Congresswoman Dingle, to some of your comments about infrastructure. One of our audience members is saying, I've been hearing a lot more about home care in the news lately as it relates to infrastructure and to the infrastructure package. Why do you think we are focusing on this issue now, and why do you think it's important for us to associate it with infrastructure?
So I think we have a moment in time that I've started as soon as I got elected, and the first year of my being elected, I realized how broken the long-term care was in this country. I started talking about this, digging in and tried to change it. But the pandemic focused a lot more people in this country about how broken and fragmented this system was. And when we elected the president, he laid out a vision for Build Back Better, and caregiving was part of that vision. And it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, I think, that that there are enough of us that have all had to be caregivers. 3 to 4 million, depending who you talk to, women have left the workplace just because of caregiving issues. More people are aging every year. You know, the baby boomers are getting older. And I think it's many factors all coming together, and we can't blow this. This is the opportunity we have to keep the focus on this issue and to bring it across the finish line.
This is a question for both of you, and maybe Senator Casey, you could kick us off. For the people out there who may be feeling cynical about how difficult it is for things to move and for it to really change people's lives. What would you say to them about this moment and this bill?
Well, first of all, I can understand why people would be terribly frustrated. Most people in Washington share the same frustration. On some days, probably less so because we might be able to see the progress as we're getting closer and closer to passage. So in one sense, it's easier for us to have maybe a little more patience than people who are struggling every day and want to see this policy enacted into law. So it is understandable. It informs, I think, the intensity with which we focus on this issue. And it motivates us to keep going. But I don't think in the end, we're going to have anything other than a robust Build Back Better bill that's passed into law. And as part of that, we're going to have home and community-based services as part of this in a significant way. And it's a set of policies that relate to families, to the disability community, to seniors, and to workers. These are policies people have been talking about for 50 years, and we're getting very close to passage. So as frustrating as it is, and as maddening as it can be, it's getting closer, and we're going to get there.
Thank you, Senator. Congresswoman Dingle, what would you say about why it's important for us to stay active and engaged and hopeful in this moment?
Well, because we're almost at the finish line and it's people's voices. You know, I was thinking about what Senator Casey was saying, and it's every word that he said is true, but many may not know this, but my father-in-law was actually one of the authors of the original Social Security bill. And as soon as he got Social Security through the House, he introduced the first universal health care bill and tried to protect seniors with health care in 1940. It took till 1965 to get that first Medicare bill passed. And we got CHIPS, we got the Affordable Care Act. We can get very frustrated that policy that should have been passed decades ago takes this long. And I am concerned. I will also tell you that I'm very worried about the fear and hatred that's dividing this country, and that we need to overcome that kind of cynicism and this divide. But progress takes time, and it takes people being engaged, talking about the issues, making their voices heard to bring about that change. And this is the moment that we can see the most real change, the most significant investment in so many programs that are going to make a difference in everyday people's lives since the Social Security Act and other programs passed. And we can't give up. We got to keep our voices loud and keep being heard. But I think this is going to be another great moment in history where we're going to put out that helping hand, and we're going to treat people with dignity and respect and do, quite frankly, what almost every other industrialized nation in the world already does.
Mm-hmm.
You heard it from our Congresswoman. We are going to make history. This is going to happen. We are living in a period in history when history moves faster. And I do believe we're going to make a great leap forward with the Better Care, Better Jobs Act. Gloria Steinem once said that hope is a form of planning. And I do think that having hope and continuing to stay active and engaged, as the Senator and Congresswoman have said, will get us to a totally different place when it comes to care. And I think we've heard it loud and clear also from Adi Barkan. This is our time. I want to thank Social Security Works for bringing us together today. For the caregivers who are tuning in, for all of you who are watching, please know that you are not alone. You are part of a powerful, growing movement around an issue that is uniting this country across race, geography, religion, class, and generation. We are all in this together. And this moment is for and about you, for the people with disabilities and older people who are counting on real change. We are in this together. We know we cannot risk not doing enough while we have the opportunity to change lives in this way, that we cannot shortchange this investment. We cannot shortchange dignity and opportunity and the opportunity for a substantial life, as Brandon said. This is the right investment in the right people at the right time. We can't wait another generation or another month for home and community-based services or to support the care workers who provide the services. Care can't wait. So we are in this together. We are going to stay hopeful, active, and engaged. And together we are an unstoppable force for change. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and thank you to our champions. And let's get this done.